The Counsel of the 10 Rulers. And behold, since none of the ones who had already spoken dared contradict Barak, Molakim finally rose and, looking closely at Barak, said, "Brother, your speech was severe and struck every one of us hard. However, concerning our speeches, they are good and proper, except for our condemnation of Enoch. Besides, they have been degraded by our inner base desires, which awaken within us only at the sight of the principalities entrusted to us. If we eradicated in us all these desires and intended to become true, faithful brothers to the people as well as to Enoch, in a just and reasonable measure, would we then still be scoundrels?" And Barak answered, "Desire is the life of the will. If you eradicated every desire within you, how could you then act as rulers? Therefore let no one suppress his inner desires as the spark of God's love, but make sure that they do not take the wrong direction. The right direction for them would be to aspire after winning God's love, and then direct all actions according to our recognition of the supreme will within us, which will keep our self-love humble through sensing its futility and inconceivable weakness. The wrong direction is the selfishness or total blindness and deafness of our will, and all actions out of it are then directed towards our own needs, ignoring those of our equal brothers. Behold, the bad desires then keep swelling through their steady growth within us, suppress humility, and great arrogance through their weight, in which situation man would like to lighten his great burden. However, since in his blindness he does not see, and in his deafness does not hear, what could help him? In his false desire he seeks all imaginable means, his self-love unconceived thereby, heaping up new burdens upon burdens, which become so weighty that they smother the life out of God within us, and turn us into beasts of the earth's matter, and food for death, which is found everywhere in matter, be it in the fire or the water, the air or the earth, which latter is the matter of the flesh or of death. For where there is flesh, there is also death. Therefore we shall all die in the flesh. Thus he who has sunk into self-love is in the love of his flesh, and the one who loves his flesh desires what represents death, and death will invade his desire, and take him captive in all the fibers of life, thereby consuming and killing him. Then he will become the dirt of death, and manure the fields in which the fruit of eternal destruction is sown. Now you know all about it. Act that you may live, or do what shall give you death. Amen." And behold, now Molakim began to speak again and said, "Brothers, you know my office and line. It was not Enoch who made me into what I am, nor was it the people, but all of you, except Barak, made me lie to Enoch and to the people, and I had to disclose my actual knowledge to you alone. But now I am throwing all the deception at the feet of Barak, and say openly and faithfully, when a God will come from heaven, his speech will not be wiser than that of Barak. I freely confess that were he not my brother, I would prostrate myself before him and worship him. However, he is a man like us. Where did he get this great wisdom? Behold, I am blind and deaf like you, but an inner murmur tells me that God speaks invisibly through the mouth of Barak. We must listen to this voice, pay a good attention, and act accordingly if we want to live. Otherwise our brother's tears will accumulate to become a great flood and drown all of us in our great harlotry, deceit, and malice." And behold, also Abraham took heart, stepped forward, and said, "Amen, thanks to the old God that he has opened the mouth of Barak, our brother, without whom we would all have perished, since we were all imprisoned by our deadly desires. Each one wanted to be a traitor to the others, and as a result death would have claimed all of us, one way or another. as a just judgment from the height of holiness or the depth of the old God's wrath. I was a smart flatterer, thereby working more evil than you and Enoch with all your cruel force, for had it not been for me, he would have relinquished his divinity long ago, which I, inspired by Uvrak and with the help of Noad and Tyrak, had imposed upon him through flattery. Actually, he had already on various occasions told me secretly that his divinity was causing him much anxiety in his heart, did not give him peace day and night whenever he was alone, and that he had often deplored his unfortunate idea of Ovrak, which because of the people he could now no longer get rid of, yea burned him more than fire in his breast. And now I am here laying down all my flattery, convinced that the wisdom of Farak will gradually heal our brother's great wound. Hopefully, it has opened our eyes to show us the abyss at the crumbling brink of which all 9 of us have found ourselves, blind to the great danger of losing our lives and everything of any value in life. And you, dear brother Farak, be to me and all of us a faithful guide toward the light from the heights of the true God who has become a stranger to us, like our patriarch Adam, and guide us all according to the to you well-known will of the only true God, and lead also to the whole nation, our poor innocent brothers, for whose offenses we alone are responsible through our immense malice, and what you, O brother, will consider as right and complying with the will from above, which is known to you alone, we shall with all our united strength and grace from above do at all times willingly and conscientiously. Therefore I here resign my rulership, laying it down at the feet of the friend of God, the true one, and consider myself fortunate to be allowed to call myself a faithful servant to the only one in this land, who among so many thousands has been favored by God, the alone true and only one, and who has no one like him. So listen to my well-considered will. The city of Farak shall be a holy city to all of us, where we will always obtain wise counsel to enable us to act wisely, and he himself shall be our ruler and guide according to God's wisdom within him, and be the central point between Enoch, all the people, and us, thus we might grow worthy, not of becoming rulers, which is unimportant to us since we have seen God's wisdom, but of being considered willing and faithful servants who will and shall rejoice in the welfare of the people, in the wisdom of God in our brother Farak, and in the complete recovery of Enoch, and therewith of all free and serving people. Amen, I say, in the name of all. And you, O brother Farak, look at me in your wisdom, and are to all of us a brother, a ruler, a leader, a counselor, and a wise friend. Amen. And behold, Abraham's words reanimated Tyrak and all the others who had spoken before Farak, hypocritical words full of self-interest, and so he, too, began to speak as one who was a true representative of all that is evil, and also one who presumed divine rights and other things like God's for all eternity's inviolable holiness, his justice, his love, his almightiness, even the whole creation, as if he could destroy it with one finger. For as he often said, he was up to all the old God's tricks, and would even be prepared to match my power and defy my almightiness, and since out of love refrain from drawing the mighty sword of my wrath against a miserable worm in the dust, the infinite against a nothing, which could hardly be noticed in its insignificance compared with my eternal greatness and infinite might. He told everyone that my weakness was afraid of his strength. What do you, my servant, say to such a challenge? What do you say, my servant, to such a challenge? And behold, this was not even quite as ridiculous as the challenges I now receive from you people, which are 1,000 times worse. For look at the root of your priesthood. When the Holy One on the worldly throne speaks, I must be silent and may not dare speak to anyone, to someone. For if he heard about it, the life of the one I have spoken to might be endangered, I need not define the thorn in my eye more closely, for you can easily find him, however, not for much longer. And now back to our subject. And behold, now this Tirach began to address the assembly with a mighty concluding speech, which was brief and like a flash of lightning. And he said, Brothers, who have spoken before me with wisdom and power, so that I was shaken to the innermost foundation of my wickedness, and realized my insignificance and immense weakness, and all the great wrong in all my actions. Your wisdom, brother Farak, does not require me to enumerate all my infamies, since even the not-so-wise are sufficiently acquainted with my former office and specialty in the most infamous crimes. Look, I am too wicked for your assembly to seek an excuse for my actions, but can say only this much, that I am a cornerstone for all evil among you and the people and Enoch. Therefore I do not lay claim to anything at all, neither a principality nor servitude, let alone servants, but let happen to me what happened to Father Cain. Thus the cornerstone of all malice will be removed from the shaky structure of all evil, so that it may collapse and make place for a better structure of Farak's just wisdom out of God, the true and mighty, to last for all eternity. Look, brothers, that is the only reward which I have deserved most among all of you. Thereby I hope not to have made too unreasonable a demand, since I am now quite aware that the old God can no longer show me grace and mercy on account of his holiness, which I alone have profaned unspeakably. Therefore, I have now said enough, and am confidently and in all humility awaiting a just, fair, and well-deserved sentence from the divine, proper, and powerful wisdom of Farak. If you allow me to take my wife and children with me on my flight after Cain, they shall be left to your mercy. May now Farak's will be done by me. Amen.